10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, all of our boggies, our brain on goggies? This is episode 12 of Your Brain on God. This is a very special episode because it's our fourth episode in our Fear series, and we're going to be talking about insecurity. We got a special guest, my roommate, Darryl's ex-roommate. And yes, he's very wise, and he's going to be with us today. His name is AJ.
AJ Diaz.
AJ Diaz. And so
in the flesh.
In the flesh. We're excited to talk about insecurity and all the ways it affects us and changes the way that we act around people and tools to help us step out of that and into freedom. Hope you guys enjoy the episode.
Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Yo. Whoa. What's up? Welcome to episode 12 of Your Brain on God. Yeah. We have a special guest.
We got a special guest.
Very special guest.
Whoa.
He's actually my ex-roommate. And Aaron's current roommate.
My current roommate. Yeah. It's
AJ Diaz.
Yeah.
So to be clear, the podcast has begun. Because we've been, we're going right now.
Yes. We just needed some extra insight, everybody, in this next episode, and so we thought we'd bring AJ on because we're going to be talking about insecurity, and he has a lot of it.
Like, we found the most insecure guy right in the house. We didn't even have to look very far.
We could find.
It's like we found him in the corner of the room in a ball
by himself. Hey, you want to join the podcast?
Contemplating.
Who would have thought that insecurity was right in front of me the entire time?
I lived with insecurity a lot of my life, actually. Besides AJ.
Yes.
Not even AJ.
I live with insecurity now.
I think a lot of us. Maybe all of us live with insecurity at one point of our lives.
Woo. Hey man, just to point out the obvious really quick, Aaron's face is really red for those of you on video. For those of you on audio, he looks like an Oompa Loompa. And it's making me feel red myself.
You do look red.
I know.
Actually,
I'm reflecting your redness.
His redness
are you
is
sweating?
No,
I'm gonna look at Darryl for the next 2 minutes of this podcast.
Oh man! Well, if
I could say one more thing,
I went snowboarding.
It's also the first podcast that you've had vitamin water on.
That's true.
This episode is not sponsored by Vitamin Water.
Thank you,
but I think we should read the top secret formula for happiness. This is Vitamin Water's top formula. Want to know it? Here it is. 5 milligrams XXX plus 120 ounces XXX plus 2 teaspoons of XXX plus oxidized XXX. Let sit for XXX minutes plus 2 times cut XXX. Highly enriched XXX plus stack of XXX magazines. Oh, wait. Not that last one. All the others are chill.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what Vitamin Water is all about.
Vitamin Water. I got some regular water right here, too.
This is episode 12 of Your Brain on God, and it is part four of our which is crazy,
series.
Of our Fear series. So we talked about the biology of fear. We talked about anxiety. We talked about shame last week, and this week we're going to talk about, the roommate of anxiety that we've discovered, which is insecurity. And so we really want to get into insecurity, something obviously that we all experience again, at some point in our lives,
right,
where we experience insecurity, not feeling adequate, feeling like very self-conscious and very like aware of oneself, and so we want to talk through it and talk through why we actually entertain insecurity and stay in insecurity and live from insecurity, and then maybe give some helpful tips and tricks to get out of that insecurity, or at least to live free.
And to give us a running definition, we have the APA, American Psychological Association, to thank.
Always had to write in that format when I was writing in college.
APA, right. I never realized I was writing for the American Psychological Association.
I know.
Wow.
Which is weird because I was writing biblical exegesis.
But
they had us do it in APA. Anyway, keep going.
So insecurity. Noun. A feeling of inadequacy, lack of self-confidence, and inability to cope. accompanied by general uncertainty and anxiety about one's goals, abilities, or relationships with others. So it's a feeling of inadequacy, a feeling of a lack of self-confidence, a feeling of inability to cope, accompanied by uncertainty and anxiety. That's interesting to me because before I read that, I guess I knew the experience of having anxiety, you know, in those moments of insecurity,
Right.
but I wouldn't have necessarily partnered them together.
Right.
That insecurity, but the way that the American Psychological Association defines insecurity is accompanied by anxiety and uncertainty.
Right.
Yeah,
Which I
because
thought was
the question is if it's like you're inadequate, you feel inadequate, but you don't have the anxiety that comes with that,
Right.
then is that also insecurity?
I don't think so. Right.
You feel, well, you would still feel
I don't know.
inadequate though.
You could feel inadequate,
Yeah.
but if it doesn't make a difference to your experience, it's like I don't feel adequate when it comes to skateboarding. But I wouldn't say I have an insecurity when it comes to skateboarding. I just know I'm not good.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you wouldn't use the word inadequate. You would just say, I'm just not good at skateboarding.
Exactly.
You wouldn't say, I'm inadequate at skateboarding because
I have a lack of self-confidence when it comes to skateboarding.
Because in saying that you're inadequate, it means that there
that's
is
true.
an adequate ideal that you're supposed to be living up to, that you feel like you should be living up to.
Yeah.
There is an assumption of a standard that I'm not meeting.
Exactly. So that would mean there's a standard of skateboarding, which doesn't make sense at all because there's a bunch of just like
The standards are all different.
all different. And there's vert skating, there's street skating, you know what I mean? There's I could talk about skateboarding all day if you want to. But you know, no, but yeah, you're saying that there's a standard that you're not living up to and you're inadequate to that standard, and then the distance between that standard and where you are at, that's the anxiety portion, I would say.
Right. Yeah. The
Right.
distance between where I am and where I feel I need to be.
Exactly.
Or where I should be.
And if you're assigning value to that thing. So if it's like skateboarding, if your friends in your world or whatever is skateboarding, it might be basketball for other people. It might be the gym for other people. Like we talked about this before, like you see like the guys with the Instagram, with like the gym, fitness, lifestyle Instagrams, and you see them get really caught up in that.
Right.
And they're so involved in it that a lot of them can appear insecure or do suffer with that. But then from the outside looking in, like all of us aren't really in that vibe. It just looks kind of silly.
Right.
And so it's weird that we could get so caught up in whatever it is. Like it could be skateboarding, could be fit life, right?
Right,
But then
right.
when you're looking at it from the outside, it seems kind of silly.
Have that be
Which
the source of
maybe
value.
insecurity seems kind of silly in general when you're able to take a completely outside view, which is hard to do.
Right.
Right. And you were mentioning earlier, AJ, that you had when you would think about your skinnier self.
Yeah.
Because when you were younger, you felt like you needed to be buff in order to
Yeah.
to have value or whatever.
And now you're
So-
jacked.
And now I'm jacked.
you're jacked
and no longer insecure at all, ever.
But you look back at your skinnier self, you know, and you were saying that. What did you say? You said you wish you could tell yourself something.
I said, yeah, I always wish I could tell my skinnier self, like 22-year-old AJ, like you could do it you don't need to be so hard on yourself while you're doing it.
Right.
Like you don't need to find a complete value in that. I don't exactly know why being buff became that for me, but yeah, maybe it's because I always wanted that growing up. Also, my girlfriend that I had for like a couple years was always like telling me to get buff. Yeah, just always, you guys didn't even know this about me, but she like nonstop was like telling me about abs, and I
didn't
never
know
had
that.
them until after, and so then I became obsessed with abs.
You never told us this.
Dang.
Yeah,
I
I never
didn't
told
know
you that.
that.
Saved it for the podcast. Honestly,
I've
it's
lived with you for so long.
I know. No, she has a
couple
poster
years.
of Jacob or whatever from Twilight on her wall.
Oh,
Fridge.
jeez.
And
She
all
was
the time,
comparing
every
you to
time
him.
I was hanging out, she was like, "I wish you had abs like him."
No
Dude,
way.
no wonder that made
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
get abs.
And then I got abs and got obsessed with my abs.
That is.
I didn't drink. I didn't eat.
Jeez.
I slept.
Works out.
You have to sleep to have abs. It's kind of like Pokemon Go, but like abs related.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I wish I could look back at my skinnier self and be like, dude, Like, actually, I feel like I had more interest from girls back then, to be honest. Because I had like the long floppy hair, even though I was skinny, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But I would go in the gym feeling so like all these guys are watching me, which they probably weren't. Because now when I'm looking at like skinnier guys at the gym, I'm not thinking like, oh, look how stupid they are. I'm thinking
Such a weaker mortal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, you know, they'll get there if they keep going.
Right.
The only thing I might judge actually is if I see them not working out hard. I might think like, oh, they might not have a chance.
They're not gonna make it.
But I don't think that's just logic. I don't know.
You're not like, oh my gosh, he's so skinny.
Yeah,
I can't believe how
yeah.
skinny that person is.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I have been in the gym and seen some. I've like judged the weight that a guy has put on like their bench or something like that.
Like that's all you can do.
I'm not gonna lie. Or like they're doing curls with like 15s, and I'm like, what do you? And then. Jeez. But what I have to do is say like, oh, maybe they're doing burnouts.
That's where they're at, bro.
Yeah.
What if that was where they're at?
And that's okay. That's okay. I'm just saying, Darryl, I'm just expressing that these are thoughts that go through. I don't actually sit in that and believe that.
Right, yeah,
I'm just saying that sometimes when I see, and they look strong, they look fit, but then they're curling 15s, to me, I'm like, what are you doing?
Like, that doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense. You look a lot stronger than that. I'm way stronger than you. And
Why do I look like that? I'm lifting way more weights than he is.
Actually, it is funny because when I would put on little weight when I was not buff, it was like definitely a point of insecurity. But now that I'm buff, I like doing little weight so that people like you see me and they're like, wow, he's barely lifting, but he's so much buffer than me. Oh my gosh. I have the reverse stuff.
I love how the timeline of your life is like pre-buff
And post-buff.
and post-buff. Before buff, it's BB and PB.
Well, when you grow up a pastor's kid, you don't have before Christ, so
Right.
so all I have is before buff.
That's how you define your life.
That's all I have to work with.
The major transition.
But actually, that being said, maybe you could help me unpack this. I was at the gym yesterday, and it was super packed out, and I take this bench right next to the mirrors, and like probably people need this bench. I didn't even need it. I just wanted to take it to so I could do shrugs, like shoulder shrugs in the mirror, and I just like the convenience of it.
Right.
And I was thinking, you know, the good thing is I don't think no one's gonna question me because I'm buff, and so that's and you know they did it.
Right. Because it just makes sense, and you kind of own the place, you know?
Yeah, you feel like you own the place, but that's probably more just have to do with general competency, which I guess is really has nothing to do with insecurity, because after I got buff, so post buff, I still had the same insecurity, so it didn't go away.
Right.
What was the insecurity?
I guess not being enough, and so then I'm trying to be enough through this thing that I decided, you know, for someone else it could be skateboarding, but for me I decided it was being buff.
I have an idea for your next book title. AJ writes books. If you guys don't know, he writes a lot of books.
He's written
actually.
like 29 books now.
28.
Okay,
28.
so next book title. Buff, but still not enough.
But still not enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is how it was. Even after I got it, like I was still looking in the mirror and I didn't even see the buffness. It was weird. Like I had to see it in like pictures.
Right.
It took me a long time to even adjust my mind.
Like you
Probably
kept
like a
thinking-
year till I finally saw myself in my current state.
Right.
You're like, I actually have put on some muscle.
Yeah. And it didn't help with the insecurity at all. It helped with competency, I guess, in terms of just going to the gym and knowing how to do it.
Right.
Right.
And knowing I could take that bench if I want. But
Right.
and so that's cool.
You
But yeah,
still have the feeling of inadequacy.
still had the feeling of inadequacy.
Even though maybe like 22-year-old AJ would have loved to be where you were.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And then current AJ is looking back at 22-year-old AJ and he's like, you should have just been chilling.
Right.
You didn't need to put yourself through all that anguish.
Right.
The positive emotion, I think, for me, is way more powerful. I don't know about other people, but like the positive emotion of like, oh, that'd be so cool to be buff and look like Tom Cruise. Like all that stuff's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like and that stuff is more motivating than the insecurity.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real problem is insecurity being the motivator to get you to do anything. And I'm not saying that's not, it is a powerful motivator. Fear is a powerful motivator in most situations. I just don't think it's the best motivator because what you motivate yourself in, you end up perpetuating cycles of.
Right.
You know?
That's the thing driving you forward.
Exactly. Then it's going to continue being the gas in your tank. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's what got you there. So it's what's going to keep you going.
Yeah.
So if insecurity got me to being buff or whatever, and as you go, your goals just become bigger and bigger. If really that's what you value, if you value whether it's skateboarding or getting buff, Darryl, you said this before we started recording, the cup is just going to start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
If we keep trying to fill a cup,
right?
We're trying to fill a cup so it's inadequately full. So it's adequately full, but we keep making the cup bigger.
Right.
We keep pouring into the cup, and the cup keeps getting bigger.
Right.
And so we always feel like we're insufficient, always feel like we're not enough, even though when we look back at our 22-year-old self, it's like, whoa, this is way more than what I had before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 22-year-old AJ had an ideal of what buff AJ would look like. And then buff AJ, or 22-year-old AJ, reached that eventually. But then that cup becomes bigger, and then it's like, but I'm still not there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because your ideal is always changing as, as you're growing. So, so if that gas of insecurity got you to be where you're at, then when you're like, well, now I'm going to continue using that same fuel, that insecurity, to get me to that next goal, right? But then you always end up in this like weird tension place where you can't even enjoy where you're at or the growth that you're having. You can't enjoy the actual process of getting there and getting stronger and enjoying yourself, even in the gym, or enjoying the workouts or the way they make you feel or the pump. You can't enjoy those things because you're not trying to gain something, you're almost trying to get away from something.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like you're trying to get away from the feeling of being insecure instead of embracing health or embracing being strong or embracing being full, right? And so it's like this almost like negative emotion versus what you said, the positive emotions of like, oh, I want to get in the gym, or or even it could be a communal thing. You know what I mean? Like I like the people that are at the gym. They motivate me to be stronger. They motivate me to be better. I like that aspect, that positive aspect. It feels better for sure stepping into that than insecurity does.
Yeah. Having a goal to move towards something rather than a goal to move away from something.
Exactly.
Yeah, enjoying the process, because it could be anything. Like for me, it's been like a bunch of things. So it could even be writing, especially like the first couple of years that I wrote was like out of massive insecurity. Because I started when I was 16. When you're 16, you don't know who the heck you are really. And you're like trying to figure it out, and everyone's trying to tell you who you are. And you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your career or your life. And so it's weird for me to try to remember all of that. But I remember it feeling like really heavy. And then thinking things like, well, if I write a book, people will think I'm cool or whatever. People will like me.
Right.
But I was saying just before we started the podcast was like, I was holding on to this funny worldview, even though I knew that it wasn't true deep down, because I've always kind of read a lot. So I knew that it wasn't true, but it made me feel really, really safe. It kind of reminds me of how people are accused of holding on to God because it makes them feel safe. And people do that. And that's not really the right reason to hold on to God. But at least I don't think so. But my worldview, even though I knew better, because it seemed simple to me, even just like, I think it was maybe like 3 years ago, I was like, if I could just make a lot of money and be buff and have a nice car, then everyone will like me. I won't have to do any of the hard things, because all that stuff seemed easy to me, because it's all within my control. It's something, it's like safe for me. It's like order, not chaos. It's like I could control how much money I make by how hard I work. I could control myself in the gym. Like I learned that. I could just make myself go. And I could, have money to have nice things, and then everyone will like me. I don't have to ever be vulnerable.
Whoa.
That was the scariest thing. Yeah. And so it's just been the last few years, like realizing that and having that taken away from me.
Right. I mean, that's a super good point. And that's why we do the things that we do out of that insecurity, right? So you're trying to control what does make you feel secure, because insecurity is the opposite of security, right? Even though it sounds like you're in security, but you're not in security, you're a security, which is the opposite.
Oh my gosh. That's actually kind of weird. I would try to hold on to my security, and yet it made me insecure.
Right.
It made me more insecure.
Yeah.
It's like we're almost dependent on certain things in order to feel safe. And as soon as those things are gone, we don't feel safe anymore. Right? We don't feel like we have that security.
Right.
It's like once we let go of that thing that we need to feel secure, it's almost that's the moment when we can be secure.
Right.
When we no longer need that thing to be secure.
And is it always based in it seems like it's always based somehow relationally, insecurity. either relational, not just maybe to specific people, but to the community or to society, culture, values.
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
is it always in relation to that? Like it
Yeah.
would I mean, I guess how could I be insecure if I didn't have something to look at to make me feel insecure, if that makes sense? You know what I mean?
Like it's
Because I
something
would-
to compare yourself against.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like the reason I become aware of myself is I see myself as a reflection or in relationship to other things in the world,
Right.
right?
Once we
And then-
start realizing that there are other people in the world and we are separate from them,
exactly,
we are different from them in some way.
right,
Yeah.
and that difference makes me become aware of myself, right? And then this idea comes in that you can't just be different than somebody else, that they're different or me being different is actually wrong. You know what I mean? That person has the ideal job or house or wife, you know, husband, whatever it is, right? So it's like oftentimes it's in relationship to somebody. Would you agree with that?
I think, yeah. I don't know if that's always directly in a relationship. So when I think about times where I felt insecure about writing, not like a book, but even, yes, a book, but insecure about writing like poetry or something that I don't have plans on sharing with somebody. Sometimes the feeling of it's not going to be good makes me not want to do it.
But then that's your ideal of yourself, I guess, because you're thinking.
I still would be comparing it to something.
Oh, compared
Yeah,
to
yeah.
something, yeah.
I
Right.
guess even if I wasn't planning on that being exposed, feeling that someone else can do it better
Right.
could still stop me from doing it.
Totally.
Even if I were to do it without plans of showing other people. But I guess that is still a social, kind of a
Right.
social dynamic.
Right. But it's always even if it's not someone extrinsically outside of yourself, it could be a own version of you that you've created that you're comparing yourself to, and you're almost insecure in relation to yourself.
That I can't, I'm not the person I want to be.
Exactly. Right. So again, it's all about like you were saying before we started, AJ, the ideal. I think that's that in every culture, right, or society, there is an ideal life, I would say, even if, you know what I mean, or there's at least an idea of
There
an
are
idea.
values. There are things that are that
Yeah.
are apparent values within a culture or society.
That are, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
that
that's
are
why. I
valuable.
guess that's why it's nice to travel, because it kind of opens your mind. You're like, well, these people are struggling in this thing,
Right.
and then it just makes you feel silly. Or like when you look into like an Instagram girl's life and they're like struggling hardcore. They're like, you see ones that are really pretty and they have a lot of followers, and yet they're like the most insecure. And you're like, you really don't have anything to be insecure about,
Right.
And you're just really so laser focused on Instagram, and
Right.
you don't realize that a lot of people don't even care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably most people don't care.
Right. For the most
For
part.
the most part, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we watched a video before we started, and it was it's by Glamour actually, but they asked people from ages 5 all the way to 75 different questions. So, you know, they'll have like, what advice would you give to your younger self? They have, what's your biggest fear? And one of them is, what is your biggest insecurity? And the ones with the kids were so cute, you know. They were like, I don't have any insecurity, you know, really.
Yeah.
Like I don't really even know what, you know, what insecurity was. But one of the guys said, you know, that I'm insecure about how much clout or how much popularity I have on social media, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and they were so broad, all of the different insecurities from 5 to 75, not being good enough, their height, the way that they talked, the way that they looked, whatever they were insecure with. But it's all about, like you said, like a laser focus on one thing that is wrong or something like that, or
wrong according to our own standards.
according to our own, or
According
yeah.
to some standard.
according to some standard. Yeah, it could be our own, it could be our parents, our girlfriends, you know what I mean? She wanted you to have abs.
Yeah.
You know, and so we get laser focused to on, not necessarily on the standard, but on our distance from the standard.
gap.
On the
Yeah.
gap from us and the standard. And that distance becomes everything that we're focused on. And I think that is where the anxiety comes in, because that is screaming to us, you are not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's the judgmental father thing. It's like even how we see God sometimes, or how we oftentimes see God, because he says, be perfect. And so we're looking at that and we're like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting thing. But the cool thing about it is I think it shows inside the parts that are dead. So like you're looking at the ideal and it's shining back into your heart. And it's like, oh, I feel inadequate about being buff. It's kind of silly when you think about it. But so if you could somehow let that part die, it's like showing what you need to let die off, which is the insecurity. Because if you can let that die off, you're more free.
When we get past our insecurity, even if we don't get better at the thing, we can still be secure.
You're just enjoying the gym now. Or you're just enjoying riding.
Once we accept where we're at. That word, be perfect as I am perfect. Or Jesus said, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect.
Where is it found, Darryl?
Matthew 5.
Said it to Abraham too, right?
Yeah, I think so. When Jesus said it, at least, I'm not sure what it said in the Hebrew, but the word in the Greek is teleos, which is speaking about the end goal. And in essence, the word means complete in all of its parts. So it's fully complete. It's not missing anything. And some translations will actually say mature. Be full grown. I think in the Message it says grow up. It doesn't mean be flawless. Yeah. Have nothing that's it's like that's a different kind of a concept when you're talking about being flawless rather than just having all your parts.
Different concept.
You're complete. You're
Which
whole.
could be still a terrifying thing. What I was thinking about is I was actually thinking about this yesterday. We have Cain and Abel, and Cain sees Abel. Abel is kind of like Cain's ideal. So he's looking at him and he's like, his sacrifices are better. He's actually pleasing God. Like Cain gets resentful because he's like, I'm doing sacrifices. Nothing's working for me.
Right.
I'm doing a lot of the same stuff he's doing. It's not working for me. And so he kills Abel, his ideal. And so then he's banished, because if you kill your ideal, what do you have? So you can't kill your ideal, because then you have nothing. Then you're just useless. So he became exiled, right? What's the word that they use?
Exiled.
But then Jesus comes in and finishes the story. He completes the story. And the story wasn't complete because Abel's sacrifice was pleasing to God, and yet Abel died. So it doesn't really make sense. Like, he's the one with the favor, and yet he dies.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. But Jesus comes in, and it's like he takes the place of Cain. Does he take the place of Cain? Let me think how I do that.
He's Abel.
He's kind of able. Or he goes through the same experience as Cain when he's in the desert with Satan. And Satan tempts him with all of these ideals. He tempts him with all the kingdoms of the world. Basically, it's like you could be at the top of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And Jesus doesn't take it. He doesn't go to the top of the hierarchy.
Right.
Which I think goes back to what you're saying of when you're holding on to the thing, how can you really enjoy it? However you worded that. When you're...
Darryl's like,
you said it so much better. Roll back the tape. If you're watching,
just rewind a little bit.
No, but if you're holding on to something, how can you fully experience it?
You mean like if you're holding on to the distance between, like if you're holding on to the insecurity, you have to you have to let your insecurity die.
Exactly. You're doing it to try to fulfill the ideal rather than just being where you're at with it and enjoying the process. Well, something like that. But Jesus, like you were saying, Jesus does come in and he fulfills the ideal for us so that we could live out of that place of peace, right?
Mm-hmm. And I get what you're saying. Cain, in the Bible, Cain kills Abel, if you haven't read that portion of scripture, but he kills Abel because Abel, he's offering better sacrifices, because Abel was a reflection to Cain of where he was not. Or what he wasn't, he saw the ideal into Abel. And so what did he do? He got rid of that reflection so that he wouldn't, so that he wouldn't have to deal with that. The pain of Abel being accepted and his sacrifices not being accepted. And in a way, I think that's what we do as well. That's why you have somebody that is maybe super popular or super loved in a society, and there's people that will just be haters, just like just
taking apart the flaws, trying to tear them down.
Just trying to say the worst things about them because they're insecure in their own right. They see somebody that is actually making it in the world or just killing the game, at least apparently, whether that's through social media or the internet or whatever. They see that, and then that again shows them that place of insecurity in themselves. And so what do? You
try to kill the ideal.
Exactly. You try and blame that person. You try and take down that person because that person is a reminder to you of where you are not. And I think that's why insecurity is so painful. Is it because it's a constant reminder to us of us not being enough.
It's like the weak parts that we have to let go of, I suppose. Because I think going back to what you were saying is, where does it come from? It comes to like what you mean to other people. So I think for me with writing in the first couple years was like picturing myself having published books so that way people will see me. So it's like more about being a writer than actually writing, which the coolest thing now is I could honestly say that I just actually love writing.
Wow.
And the cool thing is that you're humbled through the process. So I mean, I've been writing for like 11 years. So eventually at some point in those years, it was like, well, I either love this or I don't,
Right.
because there's no reason to write for 11 years unless you love it. And I think I fell in love with it more and more as like it shifted from, it doesn't really matter what anyone thinks. You know, as the uncertainty went away. And even now I have so much uncertainty about my writing, but in a good way, like in a fun way. And like, is this book going to turn out good? I don't know, but it's kind of fun.
Right.
Where in the past you'd be like, oh, this might not turn out right. Like it might, like going back to what you were saying, like what if my writing sucks? What if I suck? But it's not about what I mean to other people. It's just I actually love doing this thing.
Right.
Right. It's like you're no longer attaching that to how much you're worth.
Yeah.
Whether or not people are going to like it or accept it or how you compare. One of my old teachers used to say comparison shrinks people. So you're either shrinking yourself in the eyes of others or you're shrinking them in your eyes. Thinking they're better than me or I'm better than them. Right. It's like suddenly you start shrinking the other person or shrinking yourself.
Right.
And yeah, it's interesting being insecure about something and knowing that, you know, like, I don't want to be insecure about this, you know, and knowing that I shouldn't feel insecure about this.
Right.
You know, this shouldn't be something that matters so much to me. And trying to separate whatever that insecurity is from myself, right? And live okay and accept the broken parts.
That's difficult.
Right? Accepting the broken parts of me or the parts of me that aren't where I want them to be.
Right.
And whenever we're in that place of focusing on the broken parts, it's hard to see the good parts. Right. It's hard to see all the things that I've done well or where I excel in. Right. Because I'm distracted by all of the mess that I feel like I have. Right. And what I found is that the more I try to focus on other people, the less I'm insecure because I'm not thinking about myself so much.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when I find myself in insecurity, I try to focus on somebody else. Right. Focus on loving somebody. Focus on valuing someone. And when I can actually do that, I feel great. Because I'm not insecure, you know, I'm not doing it out of insecurity, but I'm just not thinking about my insecurities. Right. Even though there are things that I know I'm not good at, whenever I'm not trying to get value from those things, I'm just trying to give value to other people. Yeah. I find that I deal with insecurity less often, or that it has less of an impact.
Right. It's like it's a twisted self-consciousness.
Yeah. It's like self-awareness is good.
Right. Self-consciousness is like where you would toe the line, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I read this little book called The Art of Self-Forgetfulness. And it was talking
sounds
about,
good.
It was a book about humility. Right. So, I mean, I would say pride and insecurity are the same thing. They show up in different ways, right? They're the same coin, two different sides of the same coin.
Explain that. Are you going to?
Pride and insecurity? Yeah, I think both of them are consumed with self. Right. Pride is about me wanting to look good, wanting to be, you appear like I'm excellent at something. I get offended easily when someone points something bad at me or whatever. You know, it's like if I'm very prideful, I'm focusing on myself and the good things that I've done. Right. When I'm insecure, I'm focusing on myself and the bad things in my life. Right. And so I'm focused on the things that I'm not good at, the things I fail at. And I think pride, at least in my experience of pride and when I've seen it in other people, it's a counter to insecurity. It's like, no, I'm really good at this. Or no, don't look at that thing, trying to hide the mistakes.
See me.
See me. It's about see me. And insecurity is about don't see me because I'm not worth being seen. Right. But so it's the same. I feel like it's coming from the same place. It's
coming from the same place because I think arrogance is when you're proud of your inadequacy or you're pretending to be. Oh, no, well, I guess insecurity is when you're hiding it. Yeah. And pride is when you're proud of it. It's like you could be a terrible student, terrible at writing. Your teacher's trying to help you, and you're trying to say, "No, I'm actually good," but you're actually not.
You're actually not.
Right.
So that's
but you
where the
could
arrogance
even be
comes in.
good. But yeah, you can still be good and arrogant.
Yeah, you could be good and arrogant as well.
Right.
So I think it's like the same it's coming from the same place, which is, what is it that I am doing or have done? And pride says, I'm going to display that.
Right.
And insecurity says, I'm going to hide this.
So pride
Yeah.
would be like, look at me, see me,
Yeah.
but also don't see me. Because I
Yeah.
don't want you to see the flaw in me.
I
Don't
don't want
play
you to
it
see the
wrong.
flaws.
And insecurity says, don't see me, but I really want
But
you to see me.
I really want you to see me.
Right?
But maybe I'm not worth
Dang.
being seen.
Yeah.
And Jesus found the direct middle way through that. I don't know if it's the middle way, but the direct middle way through that, where Satan tempts him with everything, and he turns that down, and he doesn't like show off. Like even Satan tempts him with, throw yourself down and I'll catch you, and God will catch you.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do that, even though he could, but he doesn't.
And he's like, turn
He
this
could, but he
stone
doesn't.
into bread. If you really are the Son of God and you're hungry, turn the stone into bread.
Yeah. And then so he doesn't go that way or that way.
Right. So it's like the temptation to prove yourself as well.
Yeah, I think the temptation to prove ourselves, or the feeling that we need to prove ourselves, can either result in pride or insecurity.
Right.
But it comes from a place of feeling like we need to prove something.
Right.
And I think whenever we
Yeah.
let go of that need to prove something, to prove, no, I am this way, or
Right.
no, I'm not this way, and needing to prove it to someone, we think about ourselves more because we're trying to find ways for that proof to show in the eyes of others or something.
Right.
It's like, so the book of The Art of Self-Forgetfulness was basically saying humility is not bashing yourself. Humility is not ignoring the good things you've done. Humility is not passing on credit to someone else.
Right.
Humility isn't self-deprivation, right? Humility is just not thinking about yourself so much.
Right.
You can be aware of all the great things you've done, and you can have, I guess, a healthy sense of be proud of it in a healthy way. Know the value that you have, that you've added. But the art of self-forgetfulness is, okay, I know the value that I've added. I know the value that I have. Now I'm going to forget about myself so I can focus on someone else.
Right.
And in those moments, whenever we're focusing on other people and forgetting ourselves in that sense, we are no longer worried about our insecurity or our pride. We're not trying to show off. We're not trying to hide either.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that rhymed.
That's like
But we're just trying to show up and love somebody.
That's like hard to get away from. But yeah, it's true. I was going to ask you guys, because we had mentioned it just before, but that we all struggle with different types of insecurity, but we're all different on the Enneagram.
Yeah.
So I know where mine comes from, but I was wanting to see where your guys
Yeah,
is,
AJ asked
where
an
yours comes.
interesting question
Yeah.
earlier. He
I asked
said,
if type 3s are the most insecure.
this was the question that got him on the podcast.
Exactly.
You asked the right question. You get on the podcast.
We were thinking about it, and they're like, AJ, you should just record. You should just record.
What kind of frozen yogurt do you want? You're on the podcast.
That's it.
He's in.
He's in. Get over here. Get this boy a mic. Get this man a mic.
Get this man a mic.
He asked.
But yours was interesting to me because it doesn't make sense to me. That's why it's so interesting.
Yeah, it was very. And you were
Yeah.
coming from different places, but he asked, "Do you think that the 3 is the most insecure on the Enneagram?"
Which is the achiever.
The achiever, yeah. And I think I can understand where the question comes from, because 3s are often about trying to prove themselves something, of finding value in achievement and what they do. They're in the center of the shame triad. They often hide behind achievement and success, right? Yeah, they always want to appear successful.
Stop. You don't have to say that. Please keep on saying that. Yeah.
3s
wasn't
love
that big of a
achieving
deal.
things, but they try to hide behind success often. They always want to feel, this is generally when people identify as a 3 on the Enneagram, their main thing is to appear successful. And so insecurity, why don't you talk about it, AJ?
Oh, yeah.
What has it been
Actually,
like for
that's
you?
crazy because like
you
the
identify as a
appearance
3.
thing is crazy, because that's actually why I love the gym, or one of the reasons that, like, one of the positive reasons was because I'm like, as a 3, especially as a teenager, I would fake things. And so it's like to make the appearance better, like even in stupid things. Like I remember in middle school, if a kid was like, have you seen this movie? I just pretend that I'd seen it so I could fit in or whatever,
Right, right,
rather
totally.
than just admitting.
Yeah. Have you listened to this song? I would do that all the time.
Like, that song's so good.
Yeah. Oh, I love that song, dude. I listened to it like 10 times yesterday. I don't even know the
You're like,
artist.
oh yeah, how does the chorus go again?
Yeah.
They start singing it. You try to sing with them.
Yeah, you act like you know the lyrics.
Also, kids are like ruthless. Like middle school and teenagehood is kind of hard in terms of those kinds of things.
Oh, it's terrible.
Like if you mess up snowboarding as a teenager, everyone seems like they hate you. when you're 27, everyone's chilling. They all still love you. It's not a big deal, you know.
Right.
And so
They all hate you.
they all think you're the worst, you know. But yeah, the appearance. The reason I love the gym is because you can't fake it. You can't cheat it. Right. The only way you could cheat it is steroids, but then you get crazy side effects, you know?
Yeah.
You get side effects you don't want. Right. And you turn super aggressive. And no one likes that guy. So it's like the ultimate form of reality. You can't be a type 3, because type 3s, I think their biggest thing is lying about where they're at in life or whatever.
Right, yeah,
something like
deceiving.
that. Creating the appearance of things.
Yeah.
And, they got like the Facebooks that's like all the things that they do, but you're not sure if they actually do all those things.
Right.
But with the gym, you can't fake that. You can't say you're buff and not be buff. So
You can't
it was like,
say you lift
it
more
was
weight
like
than
my
you actually
favorite
do.
distillation of reality. And then my other favorite one is I love boxing. Not even really doing it. Well, I do. I think I'd probably enjoy that. But watching it, because it's like these guys talk big. Some of these guys talk humble. Some of them talk insecure. But at the end of the day, the ring is where the truth comes out.
Right.
It's like one of the ultimate distillations of reality. And then I think my third favorite one is just like talking to a girl or like asking out a girl, because it's like I could tell myself all day how cool I am, but if I don't do it, then am I, you know? So I
Right.
get to actually face that. And like live in reality, find some kind of reality rather than just the
Right.
appearance of it. But I guess it's funny. Yeah. So they hide behind success, which is literally what I was saying that I did, which is funny because I'm actually self-aware and yet I was still doing it.
I think
you also intentionally post things that are ridiculously stupid.
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to get away from the image conscious
Right.
type of thing, which is hard to do. But yeah, for a type 3, I think the insecurity comes from definitely wanting to prove yourself and having accomplishments. So you feel like if you don't have accomplishments, you're not worth anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I think type 7 is I'm like the enthusiast, right? Is that what it's called? Which is often like the crazy one, which AJ, you're just as crazy, if not crazier than I am. But yeah, my fear has never been in image. That it's just my insecurity has been in a different way. So like as far as like image or people see me, before I kind of met Jesus in senior year and kind of stopped caring what people, that was all I cared about was image, right?
Yeah.
People seeing me the right way. I was afraid of everything. I was telling Darryl last week that, I remember being at a party and all of the guys had on like the same Shaka sweatshirt or whatever. They were all dressed the same. It was like just clones all around me. And I was literally the only guy at the party in a flannel, the entire guy. And I got so self-conscious because I was like, why am I the only guy in a flannel? Like I was like, should I go home and change? Like I need to go buy a Shaka sweatshirt right now and like come back to the party, because I was so self-conscious. But then my fear, ever since I kind of like I let that go in really senior year, it's never been about image. If anything, I will do everything to destroy the image that people see of me in the embarrassment way. You know what I mean? Or people thinking that I'm cool. But as far as mine translates as an insecurity of, am I good? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's more, and I don't know if that's a 7 particular thing, but that's just a me particular thing. Yeah. Where it's a fear of vulnerability of you actually seeing me and accepting me. And my biggest insecurity is am I doing the right thing? I think if that could be an insecurity, I think one of the insecurities that we watched in that video, the guy was like, I'm insecure that I could be a bad person. You know what I mean? Or I could do wrong. That's where I kind of more sit on, is because I am such a relational person and I honor people and I honor, like, I want to do that so bad. But that insecurity can be like, so like the am I good enough question that insecurity, poses, translates more in a moral way and a relational breaking way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I struggle more with the insecurity of not being good or not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's where more I am.
That is funny because that's completely different. I don't even think about that. But
Right.
also, it's like if everything fell apart, as long as I look cool, then I'm chilling.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Darryl?
For me, I and this is something that I think is often the case for people who identify as 9s on the Enneagram, is that most of my life I just didn't feel like I had any value to add to anything, right? And I didn't think I was insecure. I wouldn't have said that. but I never thought I had something to contribute.
Right.
Right. I never saw the value in myself. I felt like my presence didn't matter. I didn't have any value to add. So I wouldn't contribute to things. I wouldn't share my thoughts because I thought it doesn't matter. Right. Everyone else's thoughts are more valuable than my thoughts.
Right.
Everyone else participating is more important because I don't add anything to what I'm doing. And so a lot of my insecurity, I didn't recognize until I was like in my 20s when I was like, I'm really insecure. I have a lot of insecurities inside of me, right? When all these things, I thought that I was insecure, and I thought I was good. I thought I was confident. But then once it got tested, I was like, I am really insecure about this. I'm
Tested for what? What do you mean?
Let's say I felt like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to have a girlfriend, or I don't need to be in a relationship. Like, I'm solid.
Oh.
And then I start liking somebody, and like I kind of want to ask, like, oh, I can't do that. There's no way they're gonna like me.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
tested
The reality.
life.
Tested in life,
Not like
right.
a blood test.
When the reality
I
hits
got his
you,
blood
and then you
test, and it was
find
like showed up positive for insecurity. No, like tested in life, like a situation happens, and then what I thought, my facade got confronted.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was deceiving myself. I wasn't thinking of it as insecurity. I just thought that was reality, right? That the reality is I don't have anything to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Which now when I look back, I'm like, whoa, that is really insecure, right? Talk
Right.
about a feeling of inadequacy. And it's like, I felt like I didn't have anything to contribute. And so I would always hide behind things, or I thought I was just shy, right? I just like, that was my excuse was I was shy. I'm just a shy person. I'm a quiet person.
Dude, that's what it causes excuses a lot of time. Insecurity. You start making up a world of different reasons why you are the way you are.
It's not because I'm insecure. It's because I'm quiet.
Because it's easier to say I'm quiet than it is to say I'm scared of people or I'm insecure around people.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But that was how it was a lot of my life, was that. And often today, still when I have moments of insecurity, it feels similar to, I don't have anything to contribute. I shouldn't say something.
Right.
Or it's not, what I have to contribute, it's not going to be valuable.
Right.
And in those moments is when I have to make an intentional decision to not think about me and think, okay, I'm just going to try to love this person, right? Or I'm going to try to love in this situation.
Right.
Try to bring love to this environment or whatever, you know? It's like, even if I don't know if it's going to be good or not, rather than saying it's not going to be good and tossing it away, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to try.
Right.
It's being afraid and doing it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And love looks like speaking up. You know what I mean?
often.
Especially if you have something that you feel like, man, this is the heart of what we should be going after, and this vision doesn't really seem like it. It's like insecurity keeps you from being the change agent in that situation where you could actually bring about a different thought that causes a catalyst for something good, because you're insecure and then hiding under like, well, I'm just quiet. I just kind of like let them go. I'm more go with the flow. That's been something for me too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm just go with the flow. You know, it's like, or you want to be go with the flow, but you're really insecure, or whatever it is, you know, and then you could hide, but you have something valuable to offer that meeting or that conversation,
or the decision making, not trusting my own decision making, thinking that I can't make a good decision.
Right.
So I'll defer to somebody else.
Right.
And so much of it comes from pride, it seems like, because it's like what you want to be and you're not necessarily that, and instead of just being chill with it,
right,
realizing I guess where your actual value comes from, then you're just setting yourself against that ideal, and you're scared and you're insecure.
Right.
And then you
my
don't.
pride wants to be better, and that causes me to be insecure.
And the thing is that it's either that you let go of it, or it's just taken from you. Or I don't know, maybe it's not taken from you, but I feel like if you could let go of it willfully, it's better than having to let go of it. I mean, I got kind of lucky, which is funny, because I feel like I was working on it like all these past many years, been more aware of it.
Working on insecurity.
But then, pride, insecurity, like the need to prove myself, even just to myself. But the thing that helped me the most, funnily enough, was just getting severe vertigo for like 8 months of my life, which was insane. But I literally had to let go of every single thing that gave me value. I couldn't make money. I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't dance. I used to love dancing. Couldn't go to the gym. And when I was hanging out with friends, even as I was coming out of it, like even when you first moved in, I still felt like not all the way myself. And maybe I appeared that way, I don't know. But inside, I would feel like it was like so hard for me to have energy sometimes. Or like, appear how I wanted to appear. Something like that. But anyway, so it's like I forcibly had to let go of everything. And then I realized my worldview didn't match at all, because I was like, my worldview is if I could just I can control these things. And then I remember, like, as the world was spinning in circles, I was like, I can't even control my perception of the world. Wow. And so I was like, dang, I guess I need to let go of everything. The crazy thing is, like, as I was coming out of it, I was feeling more confident than ever in my entire life. Wow. And I felt like I had nothing.
Right.
I felt like I had less than ever. I hadn't accomplished anything in 8 months whatsoever. Hadn't written a book. Hadn't gone to the gym.
Right.
Like, I wasn't happy. Like, I mean, I wasn't unhappy with how my body was looking, but it wasn't. I didn't have the abs anymore, and yet I was more confident than ever.
Right.
And that's kind of crazy.
Because you had to stop just thinking about yourself.
Yeah, I had to stop thinking about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that happened when I got COVID. Dude, COVID was the best week of my life.
It took COVID to get.
Hey, that's weak sauce compared to.
Yeah, compared to 8 months of it. I'm sorry to compare our stories, man. Don't get insecure about it.
We just hanged out during COVID. We just watched movies. I think it was the greatest week ever. We did nothing. I did no work at all. I just watched movies.
Wait, so what happened during COVID?
Okay, during COVID, I was so schlumped.
We've all been schlumped before, haven't we?
Haven't we all been schlumped? Dude, I was so like out of it, you know? That I remember waking up in the morning and I was just thinking about my books on the library, like in my like little like bookshelf. And I was just thinking about organizing my books, and it felt so good to just think about organizing. It was like my thoughts, like they were totally nothing. It was like losing, I had no sense of self. It was just like, I woke up in the morning, there was no like worry in my head about anything. I wasn't focused on myself. And I like, honestly, even in being sick, I was like very free mentally. Like it was kind of crazy. Like I would wake up and I would just be like, like it was like I was just so, you know, and I would just think about whatever, but my mind was, because I was just focused on like my body was sick and I was just trying to get better. That was it, you know.
Wow. And your mind was like free of all these other things.
But
but
it's almost like we need a reprieve or a retreat from our own minds. Like a big cure of insecurity is to step out of self-consciousness and keep your focus on something else. You know what I mean? It's vertigo changed your focus. You know? Being
literally.
sick, literally.
I couldn't focus on anything.
You know, but being sick changed my focus to where that's the one thing. You know what I mean? I was kind of focused on just getting better, and whatever you focus on becomes bigger. You know, so it's like if you focus on that distance, or you focus on where you're not, or you know what you don't look like, how ugly, how fat, how, you know, whatever you are, whatever you focus on, it just, you kind of take like a magnifying glass and it just goes, and then that's eventually all you can see. So and then when that's all you can see, that you think that is all the world consists of, and when you think that, it is hopeless and it is anxious and it is get me out of this situation and end this, and it is any way that I can escape, I'm gonna take that chance to escape. You know what I mean? So I am gonna overcompensate and try and be cool in front of other people. I am gonna go to the gym, you know, 10 times a week to try and, you know, get that body that I think is necessary.
Like, hashtag no days off.
Exactly. All because you're trying to run away from the cloud that is your vision. You know?
There's this exercise that I've seen Tony Robbins do a lot of times. Tony Robbins, he'd have everybody, you know, he's talking to, close their eyes for a second. He's like, okay, on the count of 3, I want you to open your eyes and find everything red in the room. Right? And he's like, 1, 2, 3, go. And he like gives them a couple of seconds. Everyone's looking around for red things. They're counting the red things. And then he's like, okay, close your eyes. And then he says, now how many blue things are in the room? And everybody just laughs, right? Because nobody was paying attention to the blue things in the room.
Right.
And the same thing happens with our insecurities. When all we do is look for our insecurities, our problems, and this is what fear does, right? Fear causes us to look for the issues, the potential problems, the potential pains, and find them so we can try to avoid them. Right. But in the process of identifying all of the possible pains and hurts and issues, we miss all the good things.
Right.
And so Tony Robbins uses that as an illustration to show you're going to find what you're focusing on, right? You're going to find what you're looking for. And so when we start looking for different things, it's our picture, we get more of the full picture, right? like what you were saying, the more you focus on it, the bigger it gets.
Right.
And if we're only focusing on our insecurities or the things that we do not equate to, you know, those areas, then we're going to miss all the value that we do have because we're not looking for the value that we have in our life.
Exactly.
But I wonder how much it would change things if we sat down and wrote everything that's good. Right. If we just sat down and wrote all the good things down inside of our life, inside of like our relationships and like personally and work and whatever. If we'd see those things more often and start seeing the good things more often, and we might become less insecure because we're not focusing on those things, even if those things still are there that we were insecure about, but now we're focusing on other things instead.
We talked about it. It was a saying that I thought was really cool that I came up with, but it's like the only difference between you liking yourself and you hating yourself is your perspective. You know, so it's the only difference between me that's super satisfied and like thinks he's awesome and me that is just like you're the worst, Aaron, is my perspective. That's the only difference between those.
You could be the same Aaron and have both of those experiences.
Exactly. Well, it's like just recently I was like thinking about this because I haven't been in the gym for probably like a month or whatever, and I was just, you know, I'm starting to get like not very form fitted or whatever, and I was looking at myself and I'm just like you know, like I'm not really, you know, put together, and you know, started being like, oh man, I gotta get in the gym, like I'm getting a little flabby over here, you know, whatever, and then I actually had a conversation with my girlfriend, and she was like, you know, hey, I actually like your belly. You're good. You know, I was like, all right, nice. It made me feel good, but it was more than that. It was just like dude, just let that go. And like, that's not going to help you anyway, get back in the gym if you're just like so insecure about, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I let it go. And then this past 2 weeks or something, I've been looking at myself. I'm just been like, dang, Aaron, you look good. Like, you look so good. And nothing changed. I still haven't been to the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
I still haven't been to the gym. It's just my perspective has changed, and and being confident isn't about seeing yourself wrongly, you know, but it's about accepting where you're at and still loving yourself. So I'm not looking in the mirror like, dang, you actually, I mean, I kind of do go like, you're buff, you know what I mean? But even if it's not true, just because I'm messing around with myself and being playful or whatever. But I'm not saying like, oh, I have a six pack and posting those pictures on Instagram and pretending.
Check out my six pack.
Yeah, check out my six pack. And people are like, you don't have a six pack. I'm not, you know, I'm not denying, you know, the fact that like I probably should get back in the gym, but it is coming. It's almost closing that distance that we're talking about, being right where you're at and saying like, right now, it's okay. This is the ideal right now to be right here. You know what I mean? And I think that change of even presence changes the ideal, because really my ideal is to go on a journey right now in this moment towards health in every aspect. You know what I mean? To grow in every aspect. So that ideal comes right here. The ideal is actually the journey. Right?
Yeah, the ideal is the journey.
The ideal is the process to getting to the ideal.
It is,
you know what I mean?
It is powerful that he led the Israelites by the cloud, like just in front of them, you know? It was like the day at a time thing. But it's like being happy with where you're at and enjoying where you're at. And then I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, I don't think you get lazy. I don't know if that happens to people, but it's like you know exactly where you're at and you love that, but then you're also seeking first the kingdom. So you're seeking first the highest possible thing. So you're not worried about tomorrow or how you look or how you're dressed, but you're still seeking first God and your calling. And then it's like through that place of, I guess, emptiness. Because I had this when I was doing like a Bible study earlier with myself, or not today, a couple of days ago. With myself. I had this image. Think it was from God. I don't know. Don't want to. I think it was from him. I had this image pop in my head of like I'm driving this like normal car, like a Honda or something, and then like the gas tank hits empty. And then all of a sudden the whole thing transforms and like the car turns into like this retro sports car, and I'm in like a Tron world and it's like cyberpunk neon, you know?
Whoa.
And it was like God was telling me that life becomes way greater the moment you hit empty.
Wow.
And it was like, it reminded me of Philippians 2, which we talked about, which the word is kenosis, like Jesus emptied himself. And he emptied himself and was able to live an abundant life, you know? He was able to see value in everybody. It was like the Black Mirror episode we were just watching. It's like they're only seeing value in certain people that have value, but that's such a scarce mindset. It's like, oh, the janitor, don't talk to him. But when when we have Jesus's mindset, it's like everyone has value. Everything's abundant. Like the janitor, the gardener, everyone's amazing, you know? And then when you see the value in other people, you see the value in yourself.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
When you see the value in other people, you see the value in yourself.
And so it is what you're saying, forgetting about yourself so much.
And it's like you kind of gain confidence just by valuing other people. And that in Philippians 2, like you mentioned, it says that Christ did not count equality with God as something to be attained. Right? It wasn't something that to be grasped or sought after, even though that's kind of what we do, right? Equality with God is like the highest standard, and that's what we need to be going to.
Yeah.
But Jesus didn't do that. He actually emptied himself of all possible, like everything that was related to being God. Right? He said he poured out of it. He emptied himself of that. Of the godness,
and in that he was exalted to the highest place at the right hand of the Father. And I think that is the lack, the scarcity mindset, and it's almost like to those who have, more will be given as well. Whatever your mindset is, if you're thinking about yourself like, whoa, dude, like I'm crazy, or you're looking at people like, wow, you're amazing, you're gonna get more of that. Right? You're gonna see more of that. But if you're focusing on all the scarcity of judging people by their values, that's what you're gonna get. And you even said it earlier. I love Jesus when he talks about the Pharisees praying, and they pray in front of other people to get people's accolades, and he says their reward has already been given to them. So the reward that they got was the reward they wanted. They wanted other people to see them, but what they didn't get was intimacy and connection with the Father, which is the greater reward. But and so he says, go into secret, go and pray in secret, because it's all about those right motives in seeking it. You know,
and it's the Pharisees who compare, because it's the Pharisees that go, oh, look, I'm better than that guy over there, you know?
Right.
And it's the guy who's just him before God, you know, I'm a sinner. Right. He's the one that is more blessed.
And that's because they're living up to their standard as well, which is something that I've been learning a lot. The law was exactly this. The law was exactly this. It was the perfect law of God that no one could ever live up to. Right? And so everyone ends up getting really, really insecure because you can't follow all the laws. And then Jesus comes and fulfills the law and then gives us a new way of living, right? Where he's actually with us in the journey. Like, I will be God in you, God with you. Emmanuel will come, and it's like changing this whole scope of becoming a judge of yourself according to the standard, to having the standard met up for you, and then that standard just living in you. You know what I mean? And so now you're walking with the perfect law of liberty written on your heart, rather than always having to judge yourself by its dictates, you know? Which is like, that is a huge gift of God to cut off insecurity. And that's helpful for me too, because my insecurity usually falls into the lines of doing right or being wrong, of not judging myself by this list of rules that I should, attain, and then seeing the distance between where I am and those laws, and then knowing Jesus. He's like, he fulfilled that for me, and then he came and he lived in me, and he cleaned out house, man, and now I don't have to worry about, am I wrong, am I right? It's like, oh man, righteousness lives in me. You know what I mean? Like that's huge too. So
that's awesome.
All of that changes, man.
That's good.
And you open up to that abundance.
Yeah.
One quick thing, I also realized that I find I have more self-confidence and I'm living in less insecurity when I just live the way that I really want to be living, right? Because I think I become insecure when I think, oh, I should do this, but I'm not a good leader because I'm not doing this thing. Right. When I'm just like, I'm just gonna do that thing.
When you're seeking first the kingdom, I feel like when you're like living in your calling, then a lot of the other stuff melts away. Yeah,
when I feel like I'm living in alignment with myself, I don't worry about insecurities. Right. Right, and then I don't care because I get insecure about the things I care about generally. Right. And whenever I decide just to do the thing, when it usually takes courage because I am afraid or insecure, when I just do that thing, I'm like, I feel much better about myself. Right. Whenever I decide, if I'm like, oh, I need to love my wife better, I can just sit there thinking, oh, I should be loving my wife better. Oh, I should be loving my wife better. I should be spending more time with her. When I'm just like, I'm just going to spend more time with her. Right. And maybe I'm afraid, maybe she's going to think that I'm just being fake because I haven't been spending time with her or whatever. Right. Whenever I just like, that doesn't matter. I'm just going to do what I think is important and not care about the insecurity that I have, you know. Maybe she's not going to think it's authentic or whatever. When I just do it, then I find that I have way more self-confidence to keep doing the thing that's important to me.
Right. Yeah. Doing changes your mindset already when you jump into it.
It's like practicing that courage.
Sometimes hard to change your thoughts without some kind of action that helps you change your thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually stepping into it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on episode 12.
Episode 12.
AJ, thanks for
AJ.
hopping on,
Hey,
man.
thanks for having me as the first guest.
The first guest.
guest.
First guest. That's pretty crazy.
That's pretty awesome.
Thanks
The
for coming
honored
on.
seat.
The honored
You are
seat.
in the honored seat with
Because
the
you
honored
humbled
microphone.
yourself.
Because I humbled myself.
We gave you the
Good
place
things
of
come
honor.
when you humble yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, yeah, we hope that you grew from this episode. That you feel more confident to step out of insecurity and into freedom. Make sure that you follow us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Your Brain on God on Instagram. There's a lot of stupid videos on there that you can check out. But we love you guys, and we will see you next week. Chicka chicka boom bop, bitty bitty boom bicky. All right.
Boom, boom, bow. Love you.
Love you guys. Peace.
So.